the most recent book. And I think that that's important to bear in mind. Just in general, across any marketing strategy you have the long game and the short game. What are you trying to accomplish most immediately? And then what are you doing to build a brand that is you, that people are loyal to you, not just the book that's out now or the one that you're promoting. It's how do you convince them that, they want every single Air Jordan ever made. They want every single book by you ever written. It's to make you loyal to the brand, not the specific item. So, it might have had bumps in the immediate. I don't remember specifically, but it was always part of my long game strategy.
Okay. That's very interesting. One thing that came to mind as you were talking about that is if you are an Amazon associate, the fact that you can create a specific link for, different links for different things. And, if you're in there reading a chapter live and you're going to be throwing a link in for people to buy your book, you could use that specific link. I think you can track that specific link. I'm pretty sure you can, so that that those sales would come specifically from your chapter read. Just an idea. I mean, as if you don't have enough to do.
And even if you aren't using an Amazon affiliate link directly, you can use a UBL link through like books to read or Genius Link, whatever it is. You can make a special, even Bitly. You can make a special link for things. I've done that in the past to see, what kind of traction that particular event or promo is doing, for sure.
Right. So
it's just remembering to do all of those things.
I know. It's just like you were in the middle of your discussion before I remembered to hit record. So we missed the first little tiny bit of that, and I'm sorry, but we'll get the rest of it. So Katie, why don't you give us your experience with a reader group? You're muted.
You're mute.
Sorry. I have a group. It's a small group. It's growing, but it's really mostly authors. And I haven't really done enough with it. I tend to forget about it.
Okay, so you don't have it scheduled on a regular event?
I don't. I have scheduled posts on my author page, but not in my group.
Okay. So I did a little bit of research because I don't have an author group. I should. I mean, I have a list. It's not a huge list. It's probably 1,200 or 1,300, something like that, of readers, which I have recently segmented into the different types of subgenres. And my goal for this year is to give them more of what they want in the subgenres, rather than just blasting out, here's a really great book, and finding out, well, half the people don't like that kind of romance. I love historical. I don't read very much contemporary, and that's what I wanted to know from my readers, what type of subgenre they liked to read, so that I could be more targeted to them, at least saying in my email, even if I send it out to everybody, that here's a recommendation for a contemporary, or here's a recommendation for a historical, or a Highland or Scotland, Scottish Highlander, whatever, so that they, even putting that in the subject line, so they have a better idea if they're interested, and then I can start tracking that to see how much opens I have, for if they're tagged for a particular thing, are they opening up or even clicking on, the subgenres other than the ones that they have indicated they like. So that's another little way of getting in there. So although I don't have a readers group, I don't have like a Facebook readers group, but I do communicate with my readers via email. So I was taking a look at, how to, I looked at a lot of things. I how to market to readers group, how to build a readers group. So we'll start right there. So, the first thing is finding readers group. Maybe you don't want to create your own reader group, but you want to become a part of a reader group, knowing that as you had new books out, you could at least promote or mention into those reader groups. If you have been active in a readers group and they know that you're an author, they would probably be more inclined to take a look. And it's not just Facebook or Goodreads, or that's not all. I mean, there's a lot of groups, I think, on Twitter also. And I know that a lot of people talk about promoting on TikTok. And if you have nothing else to do with your life, I suppose if you started doing short TikTok promotions every single day, that would build up. I'm not interested in doing that. I have other things to do with my life. But I think that the major thing to do is to not only find a group, but to be participating in the group. So that's, I think part of being in a group. Now, as far as building a group, the first thing you need to do is target your audience. So Celeste, how did you target your audience, or how did they find you?
So before I answer that, I'm going to also toss out the Discord. Depending on the demographic that you have, Discord is another place where you can kind of build a network like a group. As far as how things worked for me, when I first got started, I reached out to an author that I read in my genre, in historical, and she invited me to an author group that she had. And from there, I connected with another author who invited me to a big multi-author historical romance group that, steamy historical. That's what I write. And so from there, I started becoming active in that group. I was invited to become an admin early on, very participatory in there, did takeovers on my release days, did giveaways, incentivized folks to come over to my own group, as well as following me in various places. And as that group has grown, it has grown a little bit more Regency heavy than it was when I first started, when the group was still comparatively smaller. And so my participation in there isn't as much as it was several years ago, plus, my hermit time as well. But it was a launching pad for me. And now that I've launched a second pen name, where I am growing a group, and it's not a huge crossover. Yes, I have some very loyal readers who have come to contemporary because it's me. They don't read other contemporary, but they read me because they know my style from historical. I've been in those large reader groups. I've done events in there. When it's appropriate to self-recommend, I do. And then I encourage folks to join my Facebook group as well. So I try and put it out there wherever I can, but I use other venues appropriately to be able to inform people that this space for me exists and to come to that.
Okay, that's good. And I think that verifies the research that I have done, that it says that participation is very important. If you're going into somebody else's group, obviously, I think it's important in your own group. So, so targeting your audience, and this is I'm not familiar with a lot of different social medias, but Facebook, I know, is very good about being able to find demographics for your particular groups. Another way is to just survey. If you have your if you have your reader list on an email, just to survey them. I want to find out more about you. And since I have been putting questions into my emails, I'm getting a lot of responses from people. Before, it was always like, oh, here's a really great book that you might be interested. This is what I liked about it. So you might go and read it if you're interested in that. And, I didn't really track too much other than clicks. And what I have found is since then, probably I started late last year putting questions in, I'd like to know about this, I'd like to know about that, what are your favorite books that we could be recommending? How did you feel about this particular book? I'm getting a lot of responses from people. And so it is possible to survey your reader group if you have an email list and just ask them what are your demographics? For some reason, I was always thinking that a lot of my readership were younger, in their 30s and 40s. And what I have found out is that I was targeting too young of a group. I think that most of the people who read my books are in their 50s and 60s, at least, and maybe a little bit older than that. I'm older than that. I have to remember I'm older than that. It's hard to remember. It's like, how did I get here? And then choosing your platform, I think, is important too. I know a lot of people promote and interact on Instagram. That's just not one that interests me, so I'm not there. But whether it's Goodreads, Instagrams, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, I think the important thing is to pick one platform so that you're not spreading yourself too thin, and get really good at that and really involved with that before spreading out to another platform. Staying involved with that, I think, is really important. Yes, Celeste.
Well, I was just going to say that, for Facebook, the big reader groups do tend to have younger audiences, but for specific reader groups, you're looking at a demographic that does skew towards Gen Y and older, so 40 and up. If your audience is younger and you're looking to build that one-on-one, Instagram and TikTok are stronger because that younger group is going to Facebook for those big reader groups, but they're not going there for the personal connection unless they're looking for, honestly, like grandma's pictures. So I think it's important to understand, like, I'm of the age group that loves Facebook, and I use it for my own personal stuff as well as for work. But that's great for my historical, for my contemporary brand. They're there for the big groups, but really the connection is more on Instagram. That's where they are.
You're right.
Knowing how platforms appeal to different demographics is important.
You're absolutely correct there. Yeah. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Are you writing for a particular demographic and therefore you need to be familiar with that platform where you will find them? Or are you more writing and letting the demographic find you? I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit of both of that, but you're right about having to go where the demographic
I know
is.
what demographic I'm writing for. I didn't let them find me. I went to find them.
Okay, that's good. And then also inviting people. Now, you were saying that as you started to build your first group, that you were in somebody else's group and you started inviting people to your group. And, that's basically how I built the Romance Dreamweavers initially, was I invited people into the group. Since then, people have been finding me. I don't know how, but they have been. So, providing value. So what do you do specifically that provides value other than just being available to people?
So I try to live by like a 60, 40, 70, 30-ish ratio of just engaging, funny, interesting, whatever posts. That's the bulk of it. And then the smaller portion is, here's things specifically about my books, the new releases, how you can get them, what sales are going on, the truly advertising component of it. And right. I write very steamy in both genres. And so I can do things like a Man Candy Monday and a Tushy Tuesday and a Wet Wednesday. And I know that those are going to gain traction, whether right. it's me posting something and they're commenting or me saying, hey, post your own. Funny memes, they go a long way. If in doubt, post something about people's pets. That is a surefire, always going to get traction kind of deal. Ask people to show you their pets and they will. So, for me, I just tried to keep it fairly lighthearted in both groups. Sabine is kind of an amped up version of me. And so it is a little bit sexier and even higher steam. Celeste is a slightly dialed down version of me because my demographics are very different and how I interact with them is different. But I know now the kind of content that they're into. And I look at the metrics as well to consistently see, hey, how are these posts performing? What about what other people post? How are those performing? Maybe that influences the other things that I pick, but it's not all about sell. I want to make people laugh as well. Or I want to make people blush or whatever, start a conversation. I don't want to be, down their throat all the time. It's only about me and it's only about my books, because they'll go somewhere else.
Absolutely. And that's everything I have ever heard from years ago, even about any kind of social media, the 70-30, 70% value, 30% sell. I'm sorry, somebody just wrote in the chat and let's see what they said. Okay. Oh, okay, great. I'm glad that you appreciate what we're talking about, Linda. And, the whole point of this monthly meeting is for anybody to bring an idea, to discuss it, ask questions, find out what other people are doing. So you're in the right place. So some other ideas about marketing your books, which isn't necessarily a reader group, but going there are blogs and podcasts where the host actually wants to interview authors. They want to know what books are out there. And when I first heard about that, I was like, well, that's really interesting. Why would anybody want to know about me? And to tell you the truth, it was an amazement to me when I started writing emails about my travels, when I started traveling, how many people were like, oh my gosh, you are such a brave woman traveling the United States, just you and your dog. And and then when I ventured into online dating, I think those emails got more engagement than anything else. I'm just amazed at how many people look up to authors and are very interested in our boring little lives. We're not boring to our
them,
readers.
we're not boring. We're the closest thing to celebrities that a lot of them know, and when I work with clients, I tell them the days of that little picture and bio at the end of the book that would satisfy us, but leave us wondering like, oh, where do they actually live? What do they actually do? Those days are over. Now that there's social media, people have an expectation of access, and we are public figures in their minds. So what we might think is just mundane, to them, it is important,
It is. And the whole idea of storytelling, whether you're writing emails, making posts, being able to write anything and bring it back and how it relates to our lives is very interesting to people. No matter how boring we think our own lives are. So, you can Google things like author blogs or author podcasts or author vlogs and, find out what are they looking for. So much, it's just like movies. Sometimes I think to myself, there are really schlocky movies being made these days, but I realize the American public has such a voracious appetite for entertainment that, it's not necessarily easy, but it's not hard to get on to be, a guest blogger or to be a guest for a blog or a podcast. So those are other ways to get yourself out there. And how many people these days still do live author events? Yeah. When I started traveling, that was one of my goals, is to do live author events, connect with Romance Writers of America groups, and do live author events at libraries and bookstores. And I did a circumnavigation of the United States in 2020. Guess how many people did live events then? 6,000 miles and not a single live event. But live events are fun. Before I started traveling, there was a writers group in this little tiny town that I belonged in or lived in, and you know, we did a once a year live event at a local bookstore. And it was for a small little community. Of course, we were about an hour and a half away from Portland, Oregon, but we had hundreds of people show up for that event. So that was always a lot of fun. So anybody here do book trailers for their books? No, you do. You do it all, Celeste. You're great. And I've seen different book trailers that are sometimes just the book with music. I've seen, and you know, like written words in there, and I've seen book trailers which are like a regular movie. So what do you do on your book trailers, Celeste?
So I have hired before somebody to do trailers for me. She's a fellow author. She did really wonderful ones, very inexpensively, very, you know, short, sweet, and to the point. She's not doing them so much anymore because she's writing. So I'll do things on my own. I tend to do series trailers rather than individual book ones because they're evergreen. And I can go in and update them as new books add to the series. They're great for when I do takeovers to introduce other people very quickly to my series. I have, you know, quite a few series at this point, but I will do individual ones and I keep them simple, whether I'm doing them on Adobe Espresso, which used to be Adobe Spark, or whether I do them through Mondavi, which is a video editing software. You know, if I'm going to do them, they tend to just be a series of static images with maybe text over them, not always, and then music going in the background. Sometimes I will buy stock video shot to put in there as well, but it's cheaper and easier for me to just use stock standard still photos found.
Right. Okay. And that's what I see more often than not. My very first novel set back in the early 1800s has an American sea captain, merchant ocean captain guy, and a British gal. And man, this one guy said that he could make me such a wonderful trailer, you know, with a tall ship sailing along and all that kind of, it sounded wonderful. I was like, you know, I think that would probably cost me more than what I would ever bring in from the book. So I didn't do it, but it was a great idea. And perhaps that's something where I, you know, that was way back when you couldn't find a lot of stock videos, but I could see now where something like that might work. But I like the idea of book covers because when a person sees the book covers, they're easy to find in a bookstore or online, rather than say, well, I know it had something to do with the ocean. I'm not really too sure what. So, and, you know, we were talking about reaching out to bloggers and podcasts. Now, some do book reviews and some don't do book reviews. So that's the other thing that is a possibility, is not only reaching out to see if you can be a guest blogger or a guest on their podcast, but there are podcasts and bloggers that are specific for book reviews. So that's the other thing. Again, just Googling that to find them. And don't forget to ask your readers to give you book reviews. That's always an important thing. Let me see, was there anything else I wanted to bring up? I really appreciate everything that you have contributed today, Celeste. I really appreciate that. Sometimes I'm not really too sure what we're going to talk about because I don't ever know who's going to come and what experience they have. I think that pretty much.
This is my full-time day gig, night gig, weekend gig. So
yeah. And you know, so many people, and myself included, I don't write full-time. You know, I have a lot of other things that I do, as a lot of people are aware of. I do summits now. I have two, one I did in February and one I'm preparing for right now for August. And that takes some time. And then also building more content on my website for other authors. I have really appreciated all the help I have received from authors over the years, and I really enjoy being able to give back in a lot of ways. So do we have any questions that are the meetings every month at the same time? Yes, they are. I have I arbitrarily picked this time at the very beginning, and at one point I surveyed membership to find out what time everybody would like, and it turned out people wanted more early afternoon. So I changed it to early afternoon, and nobody showed up. You know, so what can I say? After 3 months, I said, well, you know, let's go back to this time, and we do have some more participation. That's great. So let me see, the meetings are at the same time. Bobbery, I write in historical romance, early 1800s, mostly in the United States. I do have two contemporaries, which were an absolute accident, but I love those stories too. Okay, let me see. Okay, so Kirsten does her book trailers on Canva. That's very good. Let me see here. Okay, Linda. Okay, we already said that we hope that this. So, does anybody have any questions about specific things that we could answer? And feel free to unmute yourself if you choose to. I will be posting this up on you know, the replay. I will be posting the replay, which will be available probably tomorrow, not today, because I have other things that I have to get done today. But I would like to answer any other questions or have any other questions that perhaps Celeste knows the answer to. Okay. Well, we're just about done with our time, so I will say goodbye. And Celeste, what names do you write under?
I write under this one, Celeste, and that's my historicals. And then I write under Sabine Barkley for my Mafia. Okay. Well, I'm going to look up your historicals because that's exactly the period of time that I like to write in. Although I write Highlanders, Pirates, Vikings, and I've dabbled a bit in Regency. Yeah. I had a story rattling around in my head for 25 years before I sat down and wrote it. And it took me 3 years because I had a lot of research to do for it. And then I thought to myself, you know, I know quite a bit about that time period. Maybe I better just stick to that time period. So,
Paula, can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Do you find that new authors, or any author, I don't know, because I'm new, so this might be a dumb question. Do they just stay with one genre, or they stay with that for a long time, and then if they want to, say, bring in cozy mysteries and you're already doing romance, is that feasible, or would you say no?
Well, do you plan on doing that under the same pen name or different?
Oh, no, different pen names.
Okay. And Celeste is working under 2 pen names, so she can probably contribute to this. One thing that I have heard is that if you're doing 2 completely different things, it's better to use different pen names, but you have to remember that for each pen name, you need to build your audience for that. So that kind of like doubles the work, or triples if you're in 3 different genres. So, and what have you found about that, Celeste?
I have some author friends who've done extremely well with one name, but multiple genres. They have one reader group for, across those genres. They just make it very clear which type of book they're talking about. They segment their newsletter. That's not the way that I wanted to go. Honestly, I write historical romance and I write contemporary romance, and neither shall the two mix in some cases. And I didn't want there to be confusion for readers, and I didn't want the algorithms on Amazon to confuse them. So I have, my new name does piggyback off of the Celeste brand, which is established and has a substantial readership. But once the book has released, the Celeste name drops away and it's just Sabine. So really, I do try to keep them somewhat separate so that there's not buyer confusion, that when they hear Celeste, they know they're getting historical. But Celeste has a big audience. And so to help start building it, I did want to, let established readers know. But Sabine writes contemporary, so she has a different audience. The demographics are not the same. And so I think that it's a good idea to separate them out. That said, I would get your feet under you in one genre, start to really learn the industry and how the industry as a big picture works. Start developing a readership that's loyal to your writing style, who enjoys you. When you feel like you're steady and on your feet, then you might add other genres or other pen names, whatever it is. But just make sure you understand what you're doing before you diversify too fast. Unless you're, traditionally published with a publishing house that's going to be able to help put you into the right demographic slots. If you're an indie and doing this on your own, I really do recommend that you give yourself adequate time to learn what's going on before you try and cook in all the different kettles and all the different pots.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very good advice. And Penny wrote in the chat that she likes it when authors that are using different pen names put them both onto their website, perhaps on different pages of the website, so that when she goes to a website, she can see, oh, this author writes under another pen name, and it's easy to find that different genre, even though it's the same person under 2 different names. And I think that's very good advice, Penny. So, and I use the same pen name for the contemporaries that I did for my historicals, although I don't plan on writing contemporary again. I'm very careful about saying that, because originally I had said I will never write contemporary. And then I had to out that, as I said, they were accidents, but the first one came out and so many readers said, hey, what about these other characters, that I had to write the sequel, and then it's like, okay, I don't want to do that again. All right.
I cross-pollinate in all of my books. You like my writing, check me out as. Every single one of them cross-pollinates.
Oh, that's great. And, Linda Lyle Miller, she had the historical McKettrick family, and I loved those books. And then she jumped like 100 years later and had the descendants of those characters for another series that was contemporary. It was a very easy crossover for me, because it was a continuation, and they could not very much, but a little bit refer back to the historical novel that particular descendant was related to. And that was an enjoyment for me, as it is kind of interesting sometimes to think, and what happened later, so that's another idea there. So, all right. I thank everybody very much, and we will see you next month at this time. And then on the second Thursday of each month in the evening is when we do the Spotlight on Romance, where we have a guest speaker in. And if anybody's ever interested in being a guest speaker for that, just let me know. And I will see you all next month.